70 years ago, here in this wooded area on the outskirts of Kiev, one of the most notorious massacres of the Second World War took place. Over 33,000 Jews lost their lives here at Babi Yar, but for decades, the site of the massacre went without a proper memorial. All that looks set to change now, however, with the opening today of the foundation stone of what will soon be a Babi Yar memorial complex situated on the spot where the massacre took place behind me. Construction of the new complex is being backed by the European Jewish Union, with EJU President Igor Kolomoisky and Vice President Vadim Rabinovich leading the foundation stone dedication. They were joined by a host of Ukrainian community leaders and a high-level Israeli delegation led by Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman.
We've taken an important step forward today towards the opening of a Babi Yar memorial complex. I hope that in 3 years' time we will not only have a construction plot, but a complete complex, where people can come to see for themselves, to learn and to remember.
For years after World War II, the site of the Babi Yar massacres remained unmarked and the massacres themselves shrouded in Soviet taboo. The first monument to the victims was finally erected in the 1970s, but this failed to make any specific reference to the tens of thousands of Jews who perished at the site. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, numerous minor monuments have appeared in the Babi Yar area, but this new planned memorial complex is seen by the Jewish community as a long overdue tribute to those who lost their lives in a watershed massacre which many regard as the psychological turning point in Hitler's Holocaust of European Jewry.
What gave Babi Yar a special dimension is the immense poem of Yevgeny Yevtushenko called "There is no monument at Babi Yar," written in the 1960s, and Shostakovich Symphony Number 13, also called Babi Yar, written around the same time. It was not much talked about because the Soviet authorities didn't want it to be talked about. They didn't want to recognize the Jewish suffering. They wanted everyone to be conscious of only one thing, the great patriotic war. And of course, it was to some extent understandable, but behind it was the idea that Jewish suffering, which was the greatest during the Second World War, the Soviet regime didn't want to recognize it as greater suffering than others, as if one could equate the quantities or qualities of suffering. And that was sticking like a bomb for decades. And it is now at a peak because there will be a monument at Babi Yar.
The Babi Yar Memorial Complex will be the first of its kind in the former Soviet Union, and it is hoped that the complex will become a major Holocaust educational center, on a par with existing memorial museums in Israel and Washington, D.C.
This is really a remarkable development for several reasons. One, as you know, for many years there was denial about Babi Yar. There was a refusal to commemorate it, and certainly to commemorate it properly. And I think what we witnessed today and the plans for tomorrow, for what they plan to build and establish there, is done with great dignity and thought. It is an appropriate memorial, not just to the tens of thousands of Jews who were murdered there and whose bodies lay in that hallowed ground and blood-soaked ground, but for the victims of the Holocaust generally. I think the important part is that it's not just a memorial to those who died, but an education center for future generations, that it's forward-looking, to see to it that people know what happened there, that the lesson not be lost, that the memory of those who perished, not just their deaths, but their lives, be remembered and be enshrined in a museum where they will learn about the life they led and also about the responsibility each of us has to prevent this from ever happening again.
Once complete, it is hoped that the Babi Yar Memorial Complex will become an important addition to our understanding of the Holocaust, keeping the memory of the victims alive in a manner befitting the scale of the tragedy. Peter Dickinson, JN1, Kiev.